Week 7 of the fantasy football season is right around the corner, and it is time to set your fantasy lineup. And in today's video, I'm going to help you do exactly that. We are going to be breaking down all 15 games on week 7, which does not include two teams because they're on bye, thus there only being 15 games. The Ravens and the Buffalo Bills are on bye. Before we do a nice deep dive from Thursday Night Football all the way up until the doubleheader on Monday Night Football and break down where I believe the quarterbacks will finish on the week, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Aaron Rodgers played very well last week up against the Cleveland Browns with 21 completions on 30 attempts for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mr. Discount Double Check has just one top 12 finish though on the season, and that was his revenge game up against the sorry Jets back in week number 1. Quarterback 16 last week, and while this is the 11th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis up against the Bengals, I don't even feel certain that he will even be a top 18 quarterback, especially in a game that has a 43.5 point total that has been bet down from 46.5 already. I would prefer to just stay away. If you are in a 2 quarterback or a super flex league, you probably feel great about Rodgers, but in your typical 1 QB league, there is no reason, in my opinion, to roll Aaron Rodgers out there. In Joe Flacco's Bengals debut, we got a vintage Flacco showing. The man was 29 of 45 for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 turnovers, and shockingly, he was only sacked 1 time up against the Packers, despite the fact that the Bengals offensive line is about as useful as some poison ivy when you need to wipe your ass in the woods. Quarterback 15 last week, and while this is a good matchup on paper, being the 7th best matchup on a per game basis up against the Steelers for quarterbacks, I find it very difficult to believe that this game will be remotely high scoring enough that you'll be happy that you actually played Flacco. I would not be shocked if he backdoored his way into being like a top 20-ish quarterback, but still not a guy I am interested in, especially since that game 1 magic might kind of wear off here for that game 2 for Joe Flacco. I get when you have Jamar Chase, when you have the weapons that the Cincinnati Bengals have, that even a not so hot quarterback could have good games. But again, I think the Bengals O-line versus the Steelers D-line is going to be a very big mismatch, and I do expect Joe Flacco to get lit up like a Christmas tree in this one. Now we move to the United Kingdom in Wembley, Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, a game that may actually be worth it to wake up for. The Los Angeles Rams going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in what is a home game in Duval, but not really. I just wanted to say Duval. This game is in the United Kingdom, like I said. Fish and chips, lad. Matthew Stafford's heater came to a close up against the Ravens in Baltimore in a gross victory, winning the game 17-3. The Rams passing attack looked rough, and losing Puka Nacua is going to hurt like a butt cheek on a stick. They still have Devontae Adams, of course, and guys like Jordan Whittington, but Whittington can't fill the massive hole that Puka Nacua leaves, right? He's not going to live up to those expectations. It would be like if Mahomes got hurt, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, and people will be like, guys, it's going to be all right. We're going to be all right, man. We got Gardner Minshew. Obviously, Minshew is a competent backup, but he's not Mahomes. Jordan Whittington is a competent backup, but he's not Puka Nacua. Stafford was the quarterback 26 after being a top 8 quarterback in back-to-back showings, putting up 25 plus points in each game in weeks 4 and 5. 17 of 26 last week with 181 yards and a touchdown. The only saving grace here is that this is the 8th best matchups for quarterbacks on a weekly basis up against the Jaguars. I do genuinely worry that because this game is overseas, though, it could end up being a certified snooze fest like what we saw last week with the Broncos and the Jets. But based off what Stafford has done this season, and with this game having a mid-range total in terms of Vegas lines, I got Stafford in the fringe start quarterback 14 to 18 range. Not a guy that I'm going to bang the drum for, though, to have you guys just throw him into your lineup blindly over a better quarterback. Trevor Lawrence has turned things up over the last 2 weeks, and with BTJ and Trevor Lawrence now on the same page, I am feeling good about Trevor. Now, I'm not feeling great because, frankly, Trevor hasn't shown me enough this season as a whole to truly believe him as a top 12 option, but we are starting to get there. Back-to-back 19-plus point showings with both finishes inside the top 13. Quarterback 13 last week up against the Seahawks with 27 completions on 42 attempts for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns with 3 rushes for 9 yards. In the 27th best matchup for quarterbacks, he is my lowest ranked quarterback that is actually listed as a start. So if you wanted to go with one of my other sits, where I discuss how, they're close to being a start, I think that's fine. And again, the fact that this game is in the United Kingdom really does scare me. Now we move on to the 1 o'clock slate on Sunday, the New Orleans Saints at the Chicago Bears. Now, Spencer Rattler has played way better this season compared to last year, and I know he is 1-12 in his career, which is absolutely dog shit, but he seems to be keeping the ball out of harm's way with just 1 interception on the season. And as someone who I really did take a dump on the dude's chest, Cleveland Steamer style, all summer, I will give him the credit, but frankly, he has not been playing well enough to even consider starting him ever in a 1-quarterback league. If you're in a super flex or 2-quarterback league, he typically finishes in that top 22, 23 range, so he's fine as a QB2, but his upside feels severely capped. Just 2 games inside the top 20 and 1 game inside the top 10. So here, even in the 4th best matchup for quarterbacks on a weekly basis, in a 1-quarterback league, there should be no reason why Rattler should be in your lineup. For Caleb Williams, he has been great this season. Shout out to Tony the Tiger, and looks like a new man compared to what we saw last season. And that's probably due to them having a better offensive line and a head coach that isn't a complete and utter dumbass with Ben Johnson now at the helm. Last week in Washington in that revenge game, right? Commanders got that crazy Hail Mary last year, which completely turned the Commander season around and completely tanked the season of the Chicago Bears in a game that was dripping wet. Pause. 17 completions on 29 attempts for 252 yards and a touchdown, as well as 4 rushes for -2 yards and a touchdown. 3 of 5 games inside the top 10 in a top 5 matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis up against the Saints. You got to keep riding with Caleb as a top 10 option. Next up, we move to the Miami Dolphins at the Cleveland Browns. And my main man, Tua Tagovailoa, the guy that I will just keep going to bat for, despite the fact that the guy has fucked me in the ass, metaphorically, of course, ever since he's been in the NFL. Deep down, I still believe in the guy, and I want him to succeed. And I think a lot of people feel that way about their quarterback, even if they're not that good. You just try to blindly have some faith. Shout out to the guy talking to Arthur Dutch. I just need some time, Arthur. We just need more money, right? I just feel like maybe Tua needs more time, man. You got all that money. You just need some more time. I'm just kidding. But I thought Tua looked okay. All right? I'm not going to say he looked amazing because that would be a lie. And I know the box score watchers will, shit on his play because he threw 3 picks. But in context, one of those bounced off Waddle's hands right at the beginning of the game. Should have been a catch. Partially the reason why we lost, because we turned the ball over instead of having a easy catch. And one of those interceptions was at the end of the game, which for some reason, instead of throwing the Hail Mary, he kind of just threw the ball short and it was picked off. So both of those can be excused. And, if you don't want to excuse the Hail Mary one, you can definitely excuse the Waddle one, because that definitely was not his fault. Ultimately, though, the problem is that unless Tua Tagovailoa goes out there and plays a perfect football game, the Miami Dolphins just cannot win. Unless Tua puts the cape on like he's Bruce Wayne, like he's Clark Kent, he is not going to be able to get the Dolphins to win the game. We have seen Tua lead game-winning drives up against the Panthers. We have seen him lead game-winning drives last week up against the Chargers. But it's not technically a game-winning drive because the other team just instantly scores after. Because despite the fact that he's able to score towards the end of the game, he scores too quickly, right? He finished too quickly, a problem I also have. And then he doesn't end up being able to win the game for the team. So Tua was the quarterback 25 in that game. And again, it's not all his fault. The defense is just a complete and utter disaster. I'm not going to sit here and just defend Tua to the death of me because, frankly, I think this is probably his last year as the quarterback of the Dolphins. I would say that, it's been a disaster, but frankly, as a Dolphins fan, considering I've never won a playoff game my whole entire life, the fact that he took us to the playoffs 2 times, that's good. It's sad that means something to me, that we actually made the playoffs. It does make me happy. Tua's brought me some joy over the last couple of years, but recently it's absolutely sucked. Even though the Dolphins are going to have to throw the ball a ton, without Tyreek, I just don't have much interest in him. And especially in a bad matchup for quarterbacks. The Browns allow the 26th most points to quarterbacks on a weekly basis. So even in a 2-quarterback or a super flex league, I would prefer to have an alternate option as my quarterback too. And I don't think anyone expects this to be a barn burner. Back and forth, Rock'em Sock'em Robots matchup. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Dylan Gabriel had to throw 52 times up against the Steelers in Pittsburgh last week and still failed to score over 10 fantasy points with 29 completions for 221 yards and not a single touchdown. I do think it is more fun to watch the Browns with Gabriel under center, but without a finish inside the top 18, even with the matchup being a wet dream for quarterbacks up against the Dolphins, Gabriel is a sit for me. Now, if I had Gabriel and Tua in like a 2-quarterback or superflex league, I would lean with Gabriel, and he is a top 24 quarterback for me on the week. Next up, we move to the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Before we break down this game more in depth, though, and the rest of the games on the slate for week number 7, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friend, star partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up, use promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you will get a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you do $5 in the pick'em, you receive an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. You might be thinking, Nick, how does the pick'em work on Underdog? It's incredibly simple. You pick at least 2 players, the higher or the lower. If both picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, the payout will be higher, but all of the picks have to hit, so make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. They have a website as well as an app on your phone. Now, Patrick Mahomes is just beyond back. He is so back, that I am actually pissed that I faded him this summer. After multiple years in a row of the guy just letting down at ADP, I felt like a genius. I felt like Albert Einstein. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this man potentially bending you guys over. We are just going to, fade him this year. Quarterback 6'7", something like that off the board. I didn't love it. Obviously, that was the wrong move. It would have been great if you drafted him. This guy hopped in the time machine and went back to the old version of himself, and now he gets his best weapon back in Rashee Rice, who has been freed off of his suspension. Top 6 quarterback in 5 of 6 games. Quarterback 1 last week as he shredded the Lions like Roderick playing the guitar in The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. 22 completions on 30 attempts for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as 10 rushes for 32 yards and another touchdown. Just easy 4 touchdowns for Mr. Mahomes. I expect a certified beatdown of the Raiders at the hands of Mr. Mahomes, a clear top 6 must-start quarterback on the week. Geno Smith continues to look like he has just a drunk dude that's playing Madden controlling him. And when you play Madden and, maybe you smoked a little bit before or you drank a bunch before, and now you just have unwavering confidence. You're just fucking heaving the ball. You're playing like Jameis Winston. Geno Smith plays football like Jameis Winston, but instead of having those fun, crazy touchdown plays, there's none of that. It's just interceptions. 2 straight games with under 10 points and 3 of 6 games with under 10 points this season. The man hasn't thrown more touchdowns than interceptions in a game since week number 3, where he was the garbage time goat up against the Commanders, while Geno will have to throw the ball late because it is very likely that they're going to be getting tossed around by the Kansas City Chiefs. Even in that scenario, I am not sure he will get 10 points, and I wouldn't even bother rostering him. If I had him in a 2-quarterback or superflex league, I would feel terrible starting him. He is a clear sit. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the cold like Minnesota Vikings. Now, both Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy are not fully healthy. Wentz is dealing with a shoulder injury, and JJ McCarthy is dealing with an ankle injury that has held him out for the last 3 games and the last 4 weeks due to the bye. Regardless of who does end up playing, though, neither guy will be close to 100%, and I believe the team's going to rely heavily on the run here up against the Eagles, so I won't feel confident playing either guy, even with Wentz playing pretty well so far in relief of JJ McCarthy. Now we move to the Eagles. Despite the Eagles offense looking limp dick last week up against the Giants, especially compared to how good the mighty New York Giants looked in MetLife, offensively, Hurts still was able to finish as a top 8 quarterback as the QB8 with 24 completions on 33 attempts for 283 yards and a touchdown with 1 INT, as well as 7 rushes for 13 yards and a tush-push touchdown. Now, I don't want to spend an hour breaking down the tush-push, but I'm going to be honest with you. I am really sick of the Eagles spamming it and false starting a million times and it not getting called. Look, if they were doing it legally and they were scoring all these touchdowns, it's annoying to watch. It's not fun to watch. It ain't football. But you know what? It's in the rules. It is what it is, right? But the fact that they're getting these free touchdowns and they're false starting is fucking bullshit. It is especially annoying because of how Eagles fans act about it. Hurts has been solid this year as a whole. 3 top 8 showings out of 6 games, and 5 of 6 games inside the top 14. Only 1 down game back in week 2 up against the Chiefs, where the offense didn't really have to do anything. The Chiefs were looking dysfunctional earlier on the season, and they kind of just cruised to victory. This is a bad spot, though, for Hurts, as the Vikings allowed the 30th most points to the quarterback position. But with how Hurts just magically scores 18-plus points in games where he doesn't even look good, and it honestly doesn't even feel like he deserved the 18 points, he just gets them, you're just going to continue to start him. He's a top 6 quarterback for me on the week. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers at the New York Jumbo Jets. Now, Justin Fields was laughably bad last week in London up against the Broncos. The Broncos sacked the man 9 times because he just stands there and takes the sack straight to the face. Instead of getting rid of the ball, he's just sitting there thinking about like the Pythagorean theorem or something. I have no idea what the fuck he's thinking about. He's taking his sweet time. He doesn't have that clock that rabbit whips out in all of those memes. He needs one of those. I have no clue what he's doing, dude. No clue at all what he's thinking about. And he just keeps getting sacked over and over and over. They are tasing on my butthole over and over. My butthole was on fire. That is a Lonely Island lyric if you didn't listen to that when you were a little bit younger or older, not judging anyone. The Lonely Island is still funny, and I am 26 years old. It is actually so funny to watch that game, though. It was so funny. Because while it wasn't a good game, it's like, dude, if Tyrod was in this game with how close the game was, the Jets probably would have won. This man was 9 of 17 for 45 yards, 2.5 yards per attempt, with 7 rushes for 31 yards. Normally, Justin Fields looks below average, and then he comes out the tunnel in the second half like a bat out of hell, right? And he just goes absolutely nuclear. He's the garbage time GOAT. But since this game didn't get garbage time because the Broncos were playing so bad, we didn't get that. So this week, hopefully the Carolina Panthers lock in. We get that garbage time matchup, and Justin Fields is able to go to work. And I just hope you guys weren't really shocked by that. Like, I get he was bad, but we knew it was a bad matchup going in. And you just know Justin Fields is the kind of guy that goes from being like a top 8 quarterback to just completely shitting his pants, and that's exactly what happened. In a matchup up against the Panthers that allows the 18th most points to quarterbacks on a per-game basis, I expect Fields, who has been a top 7 quarterback in 3 of 5 games, one of those down games he was injured, to bounce back as a top 12 option. Now, Bryce Young is a sit this week and is in the range. If you have him in your 2-quarterback Superflex league, you feel fine about him as your quarterback 2. And if you extended the start-worthy list by a quarterback or 2, he would be included. Young would be listed as a start. Now, him being in a great game against the Cowboys shouldn't, have shocked you. You shouldn't have been surprised because the Cowboys defense gets KO'd like what Max Holloway did to Justin Gaethje on a weekly basis. Quarterback 12 with 17 completions on 25 attempts for 199 yards and 3 touchdowns with 1 INT and 3 rushes for 5 yards. He has a solid matchup against the Jets, who allow the 12th most points to quarterbacks on a weekly basis. But for me, just 2 of 6 games inside the top 12, all other games outside the top 23. Shout out to Michael Jordan. There is a clear risk when playing someone that is as untrustworthy as Bryce Young. So ultimately, while I would prefer to sit him in a 1-quarterback league, if you have to do it, I get it. Next up, we got the New England Deflatriots at the Tennessee Titans. The Mike Vrabel revenge game. 1 week, not even a full week, after they fired Brian Callahan. And, oh man, tough look for the Tennessee Titans with how good that Vrabel and the Patriots look. Drake May is him. Like that weird football horror movie that I actually kind of liked. I watched it the other day. I thought it was fun. Draco May, the Iceman, playing this well makes me sick to my stomach. This team pounds my Dolphins into submission for years. And finally, they lose Brady, and Mac Jones doesn't work, and the suffering is over, baby. The Dolphins seem to be back. The Patriots are in the fucking gutter. I'm celebrating, and now Drake May and Mike Vrabel have revived the team. It makes me so mad. It's just, and you don't know who should really make mad? The Bills fans. Because the Bills, just like the Dolphins, getting fucked by Tom Brady. He's gone. They have a good team, but they can't even make the Super Bowl. And now the Patriots are back and they beat the Bills. I would be sick if I was a Bills fan. And honestly, I think that is kind of funny. That's the biggest positive to the Patriots being good, besides the fact that, I like Stephon Diggs, I like Drake May, is just the fact that the Bills fans are down bad again. And that does bring some joy to my face. At least I told you guys, though, that Drake May was a great pickup late in fantasy drafts. Quarterback Dose last week in New Orleans, 18 completions on 26 attempts for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns with 9 rushes for 28 yards, 4 of 6 games inside the top 8. And while the Titans defense has been a rough spot for quarterbacks so far this season, being a bottom 5 matchup on a per game basis, Drake May has looked far too good not to be ranked inside the top 6, with the Titans firing Brian Callahan yesterday on Monday and promoting Mike McCoy to be the interim head coach. Now, this could be a spot where they bring the 1-game jumpstart. Boom, the interim coach brings some juice, brings some super hot fire. I spit that 2.5 men. I watch that. But frankly, I don't actually believe that. Calvin Ridley dealing with the hammy, and with Ward failing to score 10 points in 5 of 6 games this season, there is no way you should be starting Cam Ward if it was even the easiest matchup on paper for a quarterback and a slightly below average matchup for a quarterback. No way, Jose. I wouldn't even play him in a 2-quarterback or Superflex league. He should be on your waivers. Now we move to the 4 p.m. slate of games with the New York Football Giants at the Denver Broncos. Now, Jackson Dart is so much better than anyone could have possibly dreamed of. I think the only person besides his family that actually saw this coming is probably John Gruden, who was feeling real nicey watching that Jackson Dart tape and talking to him. If you watch that video on Barstool prior to the draft, 3 straight starts inside the top 16, 2 of 3 games inside the top 12, and he was the quarterback 3 last week up against the Eagles, even after being stuck in the blue tent and Daboll busted through that tent like the fucking Kool-Aid man. 17 completions on 25 attempts for 195 yards and a touchdown, as well as 13 rushes for 58 yards. Now, I will caution that this kind of reeks of a bust alert. Pause, as the Broncos are the 31st ranked matchup for quarterbacks. So I will add that caution so that you guys aren't super surprised if things go tits up here, especially in a lower scoring matchup according to the Vegas lines at 40.5. Dart is a fringe quarterback 2 start. He does have a lot of rushing upside though, which should be able to get him into that top 18 range, even if he does struggle. He's in the quarterback 14 to 18 range. Bo Nix has been pretty mid this season. I don't mean that like terribly, like, oh, you're mid, you fucking suck ass. I certainly expected more, and those of you who drafted him at ADP also probably feel the same way, that you thought he'd be performing a little bit better. Last week was the type of game where you kind of just use the Men in Black pen. Shout out to Will Smith. Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. And just forget about it, right? Anytime a game is overseas and ends up being a disaster, no one should be surprised. No one should be. I talk about this every week. Dix was the quarterback 21. Can you do something for me? Going 19 of 30 for 174 yards and a tug with 5 rushes for 24 yards. Bo has been solid in a couple of games this year, but mostly has been in the high-end quarterback 2 range. I think here in the 14th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis with how good the Giants' offense looks, this could be a back-and-forth affair, so I got Bo as a low-end quarterback 1 this week. Now we move to the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue. This is our Colts. Whether win or lose, we love them. Shout out to that guy, Seth. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, has turned heads this season like that creepy-ass scene in The Exorcist. Quarterback 4 last week against the Cards with 22 completions on 30 attempts for 212 yards and 2 tugs with 1 interception, as well as 5 rushes for 20 yards and a touchdown. I know he had a slight skid from weeks 4 and 5 compared to earlier on the season, but he shifted back into the correct gear last week. This is a rough spot on paper facing the Chargers defense for quarterbacks. This is the 25th best matchup, which is not good. 32 teams. But when you have a line like the Colts and the weapons that Danny Dimes has in the 3rd highest projected point total of the week with 48.5, I feel very good about a top 10 finish out of Indianapolis Jones this week. Justin Herbert, the pervert, climbed the pocket as Jalen Phillips, for some reason, can't fucking sack the guy. No idea how that's possible. It was like Justin Herbert stopped at Diddy's house before the game and lubed up. We couldn't sack him. And delivered a dagger into my heart last week up against the Dolphins. to Ladd McConkey. The type of loss that had me laughing like the fucking Joker in front of my TV. It was so predictable that it is so crazy that our defense that gets so much pressure can't finish. It's like when you're watching a hockey game and you have the over on the game and there's a fucking empty net. The guy skates close to the net and misses somehow, right? Or when someone misses a layup in the NBA. It is shocking. But it shouldn't be, because it's the Dolphins. Because the Dolphins are such a disgrace to the NFL. It genuinely makes me so mad. Why, as a child, did I pick this team? Why didn't I just become a Chiefs fan? I don't support a team that's in New Jersey. I picked the Dolphins. Why am I not like a Patriots fan or something? Right? I have to support this sack of shit fucking organization, and I'll never quit on the team. I'll never leave. I'm going to be a Dolphins fan for the rest of my life, but it makes me sick, man. Justin Herbert, the pervert, has cooled off over the last few weeks, similar to Daniel Jones, but last week he was the quarterback 14 at Miami, 29 completions on 38 attempts for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. Noah Marion Hampton will lead to the team relying more on the pass, in my opinion, as I believe Vidal will be less effective up against a defense that isn't a waste of space like the Dolphins. In a mid-range matchup for quarterbacks, I got him as a top 12 QB. Now we got the Green Bay Packers at the Arizona Cardinals. Rich Gannon was a great quarterback back in the day, but Jonathan Gannon, the head coach of the team for the Cardinals, if you didn't know, said that Kyler is the starter when healthy, which is obvious to most people with a brain. Even if Kyler is done with the team soon, they aren't going to bench him for Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett actually looked good last week as the quarterback 7 with 27 completions in Indianapolis on 44 attempts for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 INT and 3 rushes. Though Jacoby Brissett showing up and having one great game isn't crazy, him keeping it up would be against the Packers defense. If Kyler is back without Marv, I wouldn't start him. If Jacoby's in against the Packers defense, I wouldn't play him either, as I expect him to crash back down to earth. For Jordan Love, despite Jordan Love having a wet dream matchup up against the Bengals last week, Jordan Love was meh as the quarterback 19 with 19 completions on 26 attempts for 259 yards and a touchdown with 1 interception, as well as 7 rushes for 26 yards. How I feel about Jordan Love right now is the exact same way I felt prior to last week. Jordan Love doesn't have a true number 1 weapon and has to spread the ball all around. We talk about this all the time. He's got the Oprah offense. You get the ball, you get the ball, you all get the ball. Check under your seat because there's a ball under your seat as well, buddy. Jordan Love not having the true number 1, that's not ideal. You would like if he could have like a Devontae Adams level guy like Rodgers used to have. Rodgers always had a nice number 1 weapon. Shout out to Jordy Nelson. This defense is also good. So Jordan Love never really has to throw for 300 plus yards and 2 touchdowns to win like he did up against the Cowboys as the quarterback 6 back in week 4 prior to the bye in week 5. This week, I feel like we are in the same exact scenario where the Packers kind of just cruise to victory against the Cardinals, regardless of who the quarterback is for Arizona, and he finishes somewhere from quarterback 10 to quarterback 18. You're never really excited to start the guy, but he feels fine if you have to do so. He's a low-end QB1 to high-end QB2. Next up, we got the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys. Now, entering into this week, this game has the highest Vegas total of 54.5. For Jaden Daniels, this is a defensive matchup that allows the most points to the quarterback position on a weekly basis. Jaden Daniels is my quarterback 1 on the week. I get when healthy this season hasn't been what we expected out of Daniels, but last week, he truly woke up in a wet and wild matchup up against the Bears on Monday Night Football. 19 of 26 for 211 yards and 3 touchdowns with 1 INT and 10 rushes for 52 yards. He should be able to build on that and improve. Hopefully, Terry McLaurin is back sometime soon, so we don't have to rely on Luke McCaffrey to get legit looks, but hey, it did work last week. And Chris Moore also scored a touchdown to, definitely don't want to be relying on Luke McCaffrey, though, let's be honest. I love Jaden Stormy Daniels this week, and like I said, he's my quarterback 1 and is a locked and loaded top 5 option. When your defense is as shit as Dak Prescott's, the man is going to have to throw a ton weekly. Dak has looked immaculate, like that reception for the Steelers against the Raiders long before I was even born. 3 straight top 6 showings and 4 of 6 games inside the top 6. Last week up against the Panthers in a losing effort, 25 of 34 for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns with 2 rushes for -1 yards. Dak is a beast, and I fully expect him to keep this heat up in a great matchup for quarterbacks up against the Commanders, who allow the 9th most points on a per-game basis to the quarterback position with the highest expected point total. Dak is my quarterback 2, clear top 5 quarterback on the week, and the best argument to be made for someone that's going to outscore Jaden Daniels would be Dak Prescott in the exact same game. Next up, we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Atlanta Falcons at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Michael Penix and Drake London were a combo like peanut butter and jelly. It was peanut butter and jelly time last week up against the Bills. Penix was 20 of 32 for 250 yards and 1 touchdown, which could have been 2 if London's arm, he had the Stretch Armstrong arm and it was slightly bigger, or if his feet were a little bit smaller. Shout out to Kevin Durant. Penix was the quarterback 20, and while he does look good out there, he isn't a guy that you really want to be relying on in one quarterback leagues, especially when the rushing attack is as lethal as theirs is, especially in the red zone with Bijan and Tyler Algier. So with limited touchdown upside, I would prefer Penix to be on my bench in a slightly below average matchup in a 2-quarterback or super flex league, though. He's a lower end quarterback to start, so he is fine. Mac Jones, Brock Purdy has a chance to start this week and return, according to Adam Schefter. He's been dealing with the toe injury, but has a chance to return doesn't really mean anything, right? It's not a super positive report towards him coming back. Mac Jones simmered down last week. He did look good, but he couldn't find the end zone. 27 of 39 for 347 yards and 2 interceptions with 5 rushes for 13 yards. The Falcons defense had the Bills offense looking inept last week, so that does have me worried about Mac Jones, who's playing through an injury, or if it is Brock Purdy in the 28th best game for quarterbacks in terms of a matchup. I would prefer to leave Mac on the pine this week. If he does start, though, in a 2-quarterback or super flex league, he's fine with being like the quarterback 2. But again, I'm definitely nervous. And same thing would be the case if Brock Purdy was the starter. Now we move to the first of 2 Monday Night Football games, because why have one when you can have 2? Like that old school taco commercial. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Baker Mayfield's weapons are all in the hospital, and still this man continues to put his helmet on and go absolutely nuclear. Ooga booga egbuka, going through a hamstring injury. No Godwin again. Maybe Evans is back, but I wouldn't bet on that. Shout out to Troy Bolton. And yet, even with a banged up line, Baker was the quarterback 11 last week, 17 of 23 for 256 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 3 rushes for 14 yards. Even with Sterling Shepard and 140-pound soaking wet Tez Johnson, likely as his number 1 and number 2 option, when a man runs as hot as Baker Mayfield, you keep rocking with him. 4 straight top 11 showings with a top 6 matchup for quarterbacks up against the Lions. Baker Mayfield is a must-start top 8 option, especially in what is expected to be the second highest scoring game of the week, with a line set at 53 for the over-under. Jared Goff continues to be a great real-life quarterback that just isn't great for fantasy football. Quarterback 18 last week in Arrowhead up against the Chiefs with 23 completions on 29 attempts for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 rush for 7 yards. He even had a touchdown catch that was called back due to a penalty. The guy goes out there and puts the team in a very good position to win. We talk about this every week. He doesn't turn the ball over, gets the ball to the playmakers. The problem is when you have Gibbs, you have Monty, you don't need to throw the ball a gazillion times. Over 30 passing attempts just 1 time this season, and just 1 top 12 finish in a high-scoring matchup like this. I got him as a low-end 1 to high-end quarterback 2, but he isn't the locked and loaded must-start quarterback that he's been since 2022 in Detroit. Final game here, second game on Monday Night Football, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Shout out to all the East Coast people that have to stay up until 1 a.m. to finish the Houston Texans versus the Seattle Seahawks. And I got both quarterbacks as a start in this game. CJ Stroud has really picked things up over the last 2 weeks prior to the bye, especially in the game prior to the bye week in week number 5 at Baltimore. Stroud looked like the 2023 version of himself. He was 23 of 27 for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns with 1 rush for 30 yards as the quarterback 1. Frankly, if it was a worse matchup, then I would be telling you guys that maybe you want to sit him. Maybe you want to be a little bit more hesitant to believe Stroud is back due to just kind of how bad the offensive line is. But with the Seahawks being the 13th best matchup for quarterbacks, I feel good about Stroud in the quarterback 14 to 18 range, kind of far from a must start. Then we got mono man Sam Darnold, who is on a heater, the kind of run where you just don't leave the blackjack table for a while, and when you actually do get up, you actually made money for once. Back-to-back top 9 showings at the quarterback position in 3 of the last 4 games inside the top 10, with all games in the startable range inside of the top 18 in that 4-game stretch. Sam Darnold has been Mr. Reliable this season, with all but 1 game with 16 plus points. Is Sam Darnold the sexiest quarterback start ever? Far from it, but he is always going to help your team keep its head above water. If your other players perform up to stuff, Darnold will be able to help you get that win, especially with how good he looked in back-to-back games up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval last week. 16 completion. And does it feel like the Jaguars always play at home? How many times they played at home this season? I don't know. I'm not going to fucking pull it up, type it up. We're already 30-ish minutes into this video, but seems like I'm always saying in Duval. And this week, it's a home game, but it's in the United Kingdom. 16 completions on 27 attempts for 295 yards and 2 touchdowns with four rushes for 2 yards. This is the worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, though that is pretty inflated by, they played Stafford in week 1 when he wasn't looking the best. That's just not the same Stafford we've seen recently. Baker, who looked good against them, then T-Law, Stinky, then Cam Ward and Cooper Rush. So while the matchup may scare you, boo, this isn't necessarily a huge disaster like it might seem like on paper. He's a low-end quarterback 2 range start guy, right? Quarterback 14 to 18 in a better matchup, I would feel good about ranking him higher. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Like it owes some money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Check out the Patreon, link in the video description. I answer all questions on there. $12.50. My half PPR and full PPR rankings drop on Thursday on there as well, and they're updated throughout the week. I love you guys so much. Hope you have a great one. As always, good boy.